Can anyone spare some help? We're freezing and hungry.
Please, look at my child.
I remember the smell of fresh bread and the feeling of everyone looking through me like I was made of glass. I was the fat widow, the cursed woman who couldn't keep her own baby alive. I thought I was invisible until he stumbled into the square. He was a cowboy with the grief of a dying world in his eyes, clutching a tiny bundle. He begged the whole town, pleaded for someone to nurse his baby, and everyone turned away, every single person. They judged him, they judged me. But in that moment, I saw not a dangerous man, but a mirror of my own unbearable pain. And I knew, despite all the whispers, I had to help him. The market was always the same, a whirlwind of noise, laughter, and a cruelty that was often silent. I stood behind my wooden table, arranging the loaves of bread my dead husband had taught me to bake, hands quick and practiced. People would drop their coins and snatch their bread, never once meeting my gaze. 6 weeks I had been doing this, 6 weeks since I lost my daughter. She came into the world blue and silent, and I felt like half a woman carrying around a body that had betrayed me. The whispers were relentless. The fat widow, she couldn't even keep her own baby alive. She's cursed. Then the screaming started. It wasn't just a cry. It was a desperate wail that cut through the noise of the whole town. The crowd parted, and there he was, Thomas Hayes. Broad shoulders, unshaven, dirt ground into his clothes, and a look in his eyes that was pure, raw exhaustion. He held a tiny, limp bundle. "Please," his voice cracked. "Someone help. She won't eat. 3 days now." The women stepped back. The men looked away. They muttered about his temper, about how he'd punched the preacher, about the saloon fight. "He expects us to help him after the way he acts?" one woman hissed loud enough for me to hear. Thomas heard it all. I watched his fists clench, the anger flash across his face like a wildfire ready to spread. He was ready to fight the whole town. But then he looked down at his baby, his daughter, her skin gray, her breath shallow. The rage just collapsed. It fell away into pure, wretched grief. "She's dying," he whispered. "I don't know what else to do." My hands stopped moving on the bread. I saw my own silent daughter in that tiny face. Then old Martha, the herb seller, pointed right at me. "That one," she said. "The widow lost her own baby a month back. She might still have milk." Thomas crossed the square like a beaten animal, desperate and heavy. He stopped in front of me, and I saw the lines of exhaustion carved into his face. The rage was gone, drowned by fear. "Can you nurse her?" he pleaded, his voice rough. "Just once? Please, I'll pay anything." But before I could speak, the laughter erupted. It was the women from the boarding house, the ones who had made my life a misery. "The fat widow? You're asking her? She couldn't even keep her own baby alive." Thomas spun, his fist rising, ready to crash down on them. I grabbed his forearm. "Don't," I said, quiet, firm. "They're not worth it." He froze. He looked down at my hand on his arm, then back at me. Slowly, he unclenched his fist. He was shaking. "Will you help?" he asked again. I looked at the baby. "I live 2 streets over. The boarding house. Bring her there." The relief that washed over his face was physical. "You'll try? Thank you." As I packed my things, the whispers started again, sharp and ugly. Shameless, desperate, throwing herself at the first man who will look at her. I didn't look back. Thomas followed me. As we reached the steps, he stopped and looked at me, realizing he didn't even know my name. I told him, "Nora, Thomas Hayes, thank you for not turning away." Inside the boarding house, the girls watched us climb the stairs, their eyes like knives. Their whispers followed us up to my tiny attic room. "Give it an hour. He'll come back down alone. The baby will probably die anyway." I closed the door on their cruelty. My room was small, lonely. I sat Thomas down and carefully took the baby. She was so light, so fragile. I unbuttoned my dress, brought the baby to my breast, and waited. At first, nothing. My milk had nearly dried up. My body was giving up, just like my spirit. "Come on," I whispered. "Please, try." Then finally she latched, and she drank. Thomas made a sound I will never forget, half sob, half gasp. "She's drinking," he wept. "Oh God, she's drinking." Tears streamed down his face and down mine. For 3 weeks, my body had made milk for a baby who was gone. Now, a baby lived because of me. Thomas sank to the floor beside the chair, his shoulders shaking. "I thought I'd lost her," he choked out. "Like I lost Sarah. I thought God was taking everything." I didn't speak. I just rocked. We sat there, two broken people, finding a moment of peace together. When the baby stopped, her color was pink instead of gray. Her breathing was deep. Thomas looked up, his eyes swollen. "You saved her life." "She'll need to eat again in a few hours," I said, handing her back. He hesitated. "Can I bring her back?" I thought of the matron, the girls, the shame. But the baby was alive. "Yes." When he was about to leave, he paused. "They were wrong about you," he said. "The women at the market. You're not cursed." "You don't know that," I replied, looking down. "Yes, I do," he insisted. "Because my daughter is alive. That's a miracle." He left, and I was alone, but for the first time in 6 weeks, I didn't feel powerless. I had saved a life, and Thomas Hayes would come back because he needed me. He returned at sunset, just as he promised. The whispers followed us again, louder this time. Second time today, completely improper. She's practically throwing herself at him. In my room, as Grace nursed, he spoke. "I need to ask you something. Come to my ranch, just for a few weeks, until she's stronger. I'll pay you proper wages, give you your own room." "Thomas, I can't," I whispered. "I can't do this alone anymore," he said, and his voice cracked on his wife's name. "The ranch is falling apart. I need help, Nora, not just with her, with everything." I looked at the baby, full and content. "The town will talk. It'll get worse." "They already did their worst," he said, leaning forward. "My wife died because this town decided I wasn't worth helping. Let them talk. I'm asking you. Will you come?" I thought about the mockery, the coldness of this attic room. I thought about having nowhere to go. "I'll come," I agreed. The next morning, the matron blocked my way downstairs. "You're leaving? You owe 3 months room and board, $50. My stomach dropped. I had forgotten. "I'll pay it when I can." "You'll pay it now, or you'll stay." Then Thomas appeared in the doorway, Grace in his arms. "How much does she owe?" The matron's eyes gleamed as she saw her chance. $50. Without a word, Thomas pulled out his wallet and counted out $60. "That covers her debt and compensates you for the inconvenience." He turned to me. "You're free. Let's go." As we rode away, I heard the girls arguing. Did he just pay her debt? $60 for her? Maybe he really is desperate. I looked ahead, holding Grace tight. "They're going to make your life difficult," I said quietly. "They already did," Thomas replied, jaw tight. "The day they let my wife die." The ranch wasn't just messy, it was grieving. You could see Sarah's absence everywhere. The fences were strong, the house was sturdy, but the life had been sucked out of it. Laundry piled on the porch. The garden was a tangle of weeds. Chickens ran loose, stressed and not laying. Inside was chaos. Dust lay heavy on every surface. Dishes were stacked so high I worried they'd fall. But the bones of the place were good, a strong, honest home. Thomas showed me my room, small but with a real bed and a lock on the inside. "Thank you," I said. "It's perfect." That evening, after nursing Grace, I couldn't stop myself. I started washing dishes, I swept the floors, I folded the laundry. When Thomas came in from feeding the horses, he stopped in the doorway, covered in sweat and grime. You didn't have to do that," he said. "I know," I told him, folding a shirt. "You hired me for Grace, but I need to work, Thomas. It's the only thing that keeps me from thinking about my daughter." He picked up a rag and started drying the dishes beside me. We worked side by side in silence. When the kitchen was spotless, he made coffee and set a cup in front of me without asking. "You're good at this," he said, "taking care of things." "My mother taught me before she died," I said. "And my husband taught me that not all men are kind." The silence that followed was comfortable, honest. For the first time since my baby died, I felt like I belonged somewhere. The work begins, the expansion. The next morning, I took an inventory. Grace was thriving, yes, but the ranch, Thomas's true legacy, was failing. The roof on the barn leaked directly onto his winter hay store. The main fence near the creek had collapsed, and the horses were one heavy rainfall away from wandering off. Thomas was killing himself with work, but he was fixing the big things and letting the small, vital things die. I knew the first step had to be the chickens. They are the heart of a small ranch's income. I found the toolbox, heavy with disuse, and walked to the coop. It was a disaster. Broken boxes, rotting straw, and feathers everywhere. I worked for hours, feeling the sun on my back, the familiar rhythm of the hammer. My father had taught me carpentry, a skill my late husband had mocked, saying, "Women shouldn't touch tools." When Thomas came to find me, I was covered in dirt, hammering new slats into the nesting boxes. The coop was swept clean, and the hens already looked calmer. "What are you doing?" he asked, astonished. "Fixing your coop," I said, driving a nail home. "You're one person doing the work of three, and I'm here, and I know how to work." I stood up, brushing dirt from my dress. "I'm not helpless, Thomas. Just because I'm big doesn't mean I'm useless." He stepped closer, his eyes intense. "I never thought you were useless." The air shifted between us, heavy with unspoken feelings. "The hens will lay again now," I murmured, my voice quieter. "You'll have eggs by tomorrow." As I started to walk past him, his hand caught my wrist. It was gentle, not controlling, but firm. "Nora," he said, his eyes searching mine, "you don't owe me this work. Why?" I looked at his hand on my wrist, scars from ropes from hard labor. "Because, for the first time in my life, someone needs me for more than just my body. You need me because I work, because I'm capable, because you see me." Grace's cry broke the moment. He released my wrist. "I'll get her." The next day, it was the garden. I was on my knees, pulling the heavy, choking bindweed from around the potato plants, when two men rode up, the ranch hands Thomas had fired. They were drunk. They dismounted near the barn, swaying. "Got yourself some help, boss," one slurred. "She's a big woman. Bet she eats more than she's worth." Thomas went deadly still. "What did you say?" The laughter died. "Nothing, boss. Just conversation." "Making conversation about the woman who saved my daughter's life?" Thomas roared. "Get off my land, now!" They rode off, Thomas's anger protecting me. That night, washing Grace's spit up from my dress, Thomas offered me one of Sarah's old dresses. Our fingers touched at the wash basin. We froze. Neither of us pulled away. His thumb brushed my knuckles, deliberate. "Nora," he started. She whispered, "You'll regret choosing me." And Thomas Hayes, his voice rough with honesty, said, "The only thing I'd regret is living a day without you." I looked at him, heart hammering. But before he could speak the real words, Grace cried, and the moment was lost. We backed away, and the shame I carried was still heavy. Later that night, unable to sleep, I sat on the porch. The door opened behind me, and Thomas sat down beside me. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "Too much on my mind." We sat under the vast, silent stars. "My wife died hating me," Thomas confessed suddenly, his voice hollow. "Not really hating me, but she died scared. The midwife wouldn't come because I'd fought the preacher. He'd said something cruel about Sarah, and I hit him. When she went into labor, nobody would help. She was in pain for hours, and I couldn't do anything." He stared at his hands, hands that could rope a steer but couldn't save his wife. "Sometimes I think she blamed me for my anger, for making this town hate us enough to let her die." I took his hand. "You didn't kill her. This town did, and the preacher should have controlled his cruelty. You are not the villain, Thomas." I squeezed his hand. "The honesty in the darkness gave me courage." "My husband didn't die in an accident," I said quietly. "He was drunk. He beat his horse because it wouldn't move, and the horse kicked him in the head. Everyone called it a tragedy, but I knew the truth. He beat that horse the same way he beat me." I felt the tears start. Our baby was born a month after he died, silent, blue. The cord was wrapped around her neck. The midwife said it just happens. But I always wondered if all the times he hit me while I was pregnant damaged something inside. Thomas turned my face toward him gently. "You didn't kill your baby. Fate did. Not you." The second title, integration. "How can you know that?" I whispered. "I carry so much shame from my past, from him, from what the town says about my body, about the baby I lost. I feel like I am too much, Thomas. Too much to love, too much to hold. If I told you everything, all the shame—" He stopped me right there. He looked me straight in the eyes, in a way that saw every bruise, every heartbreak, every scar, and accepted it all. It was the deepest acceptance I had ever known. He took my hand and said, "I never asked you to be flawless. I asked you to be here, because you saved mine." The words broke me open. The tears came, long and hard. We sat there until the stars began to fade. Two broken people learning that they didn't have to carry their grief alone anymore. We could be whole together. 3 weeks had passed since I came to the ranch. Grace's cheeks were rosy, her lungs strong. The house was a home. The garden was bursting with life. One afternoon, I was pulling weeds when a carriage pulled up. Mrs. Henderson, the matron, the preacher's wife, and another woman. They called me Miss Nora, sweetly, too sweetly. "We came to warn Mr. Hayes," the preacher's wife said, "about you. The whole town is talking. An unmarried woman living with a man. It's shameful." "I have my own room," I said. "That doesn't matter," Mrs. Henderson sneered. "Appearances matter. We're here to take you back for everyone's sake." "I'm not going back." "Then you're living here as his mistress," the preacher's wife snapped. "Which makes you a whore." The word stung. Just then, hoofbeats thundered. The two drunk ranch hands Thomas had fired came back, swaying in their saddles. "Well, well," one slurred, "the fat whore's got company." The town women gasped. My heart pounded. "You need to leave. Thomas fired you." "Thomas ain't here, though, is he?" The man dismounted and lunged for me, grabbing my arm with brutal force. "We came for what we're owed," I screamed. A gunshot cracked through the air. Everyone froze. Thomas stood 20 feet away, rifle raised, his eyes wild with a cold, terrifying rage I had never seen. "Get your hands off her," he commanded. The man dropped my arm immediately. "You touched her." Thomas's voice was deadly calm. "You put your filthy hands on her." He advanced slowly, rifle still aimed. "If I ever see either of you on my land again, I won't fire a warning shot. I'll aim for your hearts." They scrambled onto their horses and fled. Thomas lowered the rifle, his hands shaking. He turned to the town women, his face a mask of cold fury. "You brought them here," he accused. "You came here to humiliate her, and while you were calling her names, those men came to hurt her. Get off my land, all of you, now!" They fled in terror. Thomas dropped the rifle and crossed the space in 3 long strides. "Are you hurt? Did they—" I grabbed his wrists. "I'm fine. You came in time." He pulled me against his chest, holding me so tight I could barely breathe. "When I heard you scream," his voice broke, "I thought I'd lost you. I thought—" "I'm here," I whispered. "I'm safe." He pulled back just enough to look at me, his thumb brushing my cheek. "I can't do this anymore, Nora." "What?" "Pretending you're just a worker. Pretending I don't need you more than air. I love you, Nora. I'm in love with you, and I can't keep hiding it." Tears spilled down my face. "I love you too." "Then marry me," he said, the urgency ringing in his voice. "Tomorrow, not someday, before anyone else can try to take you away." "Yes," I whispered. "Yes." He kissed me then, desperate, claiming, like he'd been holding back for weeks and had finally broken free. See, 7, the final stand and the legacy, expanding from 0 hours, 27 minutes, and 35 seconds, 0 hours, 33 minutes, and 17 seconds. Dawn broke clear. We rode into town as the church bells rang for Sunday service. The streets were packed with people in their Sunday best, gathering in the square after the sermon. Thomas's wagon rolled to a stop right in front of the courthouse. Conversations died. Every head turned. The angry rancher and the fat widow together. Thomas helped me down, his hand firm on my back. We walked toward the courthouse steps. Then Sheriff Patterson pushed through the crowd, the matron beside him. "Thomas Hayes! Mrs. Henderson filed a complaint. Says you're keeping Miss Nora against her will, living in sin." The crowd pressed closer, hungry for scandal. "Nora is here by choice," Thomas said, dangerously calm. "Doesn't matter," the sheriff insisted. "Unmarried people living together breaks town ordinance. Marry her right now, or I enforce the complaint." Thomas turned to me, a small, fierce smile on his face. "That was the plan anyway." I nodded, my heart pounding, facing the entire town. The matron sputtered, "This is absurd. A forced marriage." "Nobody's forcing me," I said clearly, my voice ringing out for the whole square to hear. "I choose him." The judge pulled out his book. Old Martha pushed forward to witness. The blacksmith joined her. "Thomas Hayes, do you take this woman as your wife?" "I do." "Nora, do you take this man as your husband?" "I do." The judge snapped his book shut. "I pronounce you husband and wife. Kiss your bride." Thomas cupped my face and kissed me right there on the courthouse steps, unashamed. When he pulled back, he turned to face the stunned crowd, his arm around me, claiming me for good. "She's my wife now. Legally. Anyone got a problem with that? Silence. Then the matron spoke. This doesn't change what she is. She trapped you. Thomas cut her off, his voice ringing out across the square, a final defining speech. You are talking about my wife. She saved my daughter when every one of you refused. She saved my ranch. She saved me when I wanted to die from grief. He pulled me tighter. She is in my house, my life, my heart, and I'm damn proud of that. One of the girls called out, You'll regret this. Thomas stared right at her. The only thing I regret, he declared, is that you'll never know what it's like to be loved the way I love my wife. He turned to the sheriff. We done? The sheriff nodded, complaint dismissed. Thomas helped me into the wagon. As we started to leave, he stood up on the seat one last time so everyone could see. One more thing, he announced. Anyone who insults my wife insults me. Anyone who threatens her threatens my family. And I protect my family. Remember that. He drove away. The ride home was quiet. Thomas's hand covered mine. Mrs. Hayes, he said softly. I smiled, tears running down my face. I liked the sound of that. Back at the ranch, the sun was setting, painting everything gold. Thomas lifted me down, then took Grace from my arms. We stood on the porch, watching the light fade. Are you happy? He asked. This, I whispered, leaning against the man who chose me when the world said I wasn't worth choosing. This is happy. We saved each other. Two people the world said weren't enough, who found each other and built a family the town couldn't touch. 8. Call to action. If this story of finding worth, of choosing love over judgment, touched your heart, then I hope you'll join our community. Hit that like button, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. We have so many more unforgettable tales of courage and second chances waiting for you right here on Iron Veil Narratives. Thank you for watching.